Hey everyone, this video is going to be about the threat of biological terrorism. I've got before me an article, kind of keep my sensors out there and always on the lookout for current events from a spiritual perspective. And one of the websites that I frequent on a consistent basis is called The Trumpet. So they kind of look at things through a Christian lens, and I think I picked this article up from their website about a week or two ago, and I've been holding on to it for a while. Keep meaning to make a video and read some of what is in this article because I thought it brought up some very interesting concepts. All of us remember September 11th, the devastation, destruction that was caused. And as we look at world events now, we can see that the COVID-19 virus has infinitely done more damage than that one act of terrorism. And we've actually had ongoing terrorism, dozens and dozens of attacks in multiple countries over the last 20 years or so. And yet, the coronavirus has basically brought the world to a screeching halt. And this article warns and presents to the readers perhaps the necessity of mentally preparing for the possibility of a human-engineered bioweapon being used on a mass scale. So if something as simplistic as the coronavirus, which may be a death rate of 1%, what would happen if a real plague, a real bioweapon was used by an enemy nation on a worldwide level, and the lethal, that would 100 times more lethal than the coronavirus. So since World War I, no major power has used a bioweapon, and many countries have signed a treaty to outlaw them. However, it's very interesting that China is the world's #1 expert in bioweapons research. And high on that list, as you can imagine, is also Russia, North Korea, and Iran. North Korea alone, according to the Belfer Center at Harvard, is capable of producing a ton of bioweapons each year. It has weaponized at least 13 different germs, one of which is anthrax, but there's yellow fever, typhoid, smallpox, bubonic plague, and the list goes on. And the article says, pound for pound, many of these bioweapons are more lethal than nuclear weapons. For example, just take one nation, North Korea, and one of its 13 militarized bioweapons, anthrax. And the article says, as little as a gallon of weaponized anthrax could kill every single human being on the planet. Only 1 gallon from one country of one of 13 germs that North Korea has weaponized. Very humbling, sobering thought. So these bioweapons can be manufactured on a small scale at a fraction of the cost of a single hydrogen bomb, and they can be deployed to create maximum damage. It is also interesting, not only is China the world's #1 leader of bioweapons research, but they have a lab in Wuhan, which is the institute of basically studying viruses. And so there's a lot of speculation by our government and others that this virus originated from this lab, this institute in Wuhan. But as the article continues, modern biotechnology has advanced significantly in recent years, making it possible that specific ethnic groups can be targeted as a result. So specific races or groups of people engineering the bioweapon to target specific genetic specifics for different genetic populations. So with a genetically targeted weapon, essentially only the threat of retaliation remains a deterrent. However, today we've got Iran, who firmly believes, and I was reading in their constitution this morning, actually. I know it sounds weird, but just kind of looking at there is the 1979 when they the revolution and their new constitution. And according to, because it's a religious state, it's theocracy, they believe that in order for their Messiah to return to the earth, they must bring about the world's destruction. They must bring about the destruction of Israel and bring about a worldwide government, a one world government, Islamic government. And to achieve that, according to their religious documents, it doesn't matter how bad things get. In fact, the worse that the world gets, the better, to usher in his return. So they're going to stop at any, they've been very public about this. And I know they're deceptive on the surface level, but I'm reading what the generals are putting out and what the supreme leader is saying to the people and to the military and to the Revolutionary Guard. And they definitely want to usher in the Messiah's return, and to do that, to use war as a way to do that. So are we more susceptible to global bioweapons in the future? I think the answer to that is yes. We're going to see more bio warfare. And that really challenges each one of us. Are we prepared to face our Creator? Do we recognize that this life is temporary? And whether it's something a month from now or whether we live for another 50 years, we are going somewhere, and we need to be prepared for eternity. There's nothing more important than eternity. In addition to this article, I was doing some research on the Commerce Department's website. And according to their own admission, 80% of generic drugs come from China and India. 80% of our drugs in America come from China and India. And we're talking drugs as diverse as birth control, antidepressants, vitamins, painkillers, diabetes, hormones, everything. In fact, 97% of all antibiotics comes from China. 97%. 90% of all vitamin C from China. 95% of ibuprofen comes from China. And it's just interesting that if there was a major biological issue, warfare issue around the globe, that the one who controls the solution, the vaccine, has a tremendous amount of power. And this whole COVID-19 issue the last few months has really opened the eyes of a number of Americans that we are way too reliant on foreign countries, even hostile foreign countries, for our well-being. In this case, China, for the drugs that we use on a daily common basis. And also, I think this COVID-19 pandemic that we're facing also is allowing leaders in many nations to use the virus to enhance their powers. So we're going to see more power, more control, bigger government, more powerful government. And from a spiritual perspective, looking at through things from the lens of the Bible, this kind of fits into end times beliefs and teachings, where it's very clear in Revelation that Satan is trying to set up a one world government before the return of Jesus Christ, who will set up the perfect one world government for 1,000 years and will reign as the king of the earth for 1,000 years during that time. So before Jesus comes, Satan trying to mimic him, and that's what he does in many different ways, in many different fashions and forms. Satan's trying to set up a one world government, and he does his very best, especially during the last 7 years of human history as we know it, the tribulation period. And so I think it's interesting, number one, the susceptibility of further epidemics, viruses, diseases spreading around the world, even using that as a weapon by certain countries, that the country or the group that controls the cure has tremendous power over the rest of the world and may be able to get them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And that governments are gaining more power. I'm looking at mass surveillance measures like facial recognition and monitoring phones, which is taking place in China right now to a massive scale. But basically, as governments gain more power, our privacy, our freedom is going to be sacrificed for the common good. And once governments gain a certain amount of power, of course, they're never going to give it back. And the people are going to be a slave to that system. So, from a biblical perspective, it seems like world events are leading to the end of the world, as described in Revelation, and the return of Jesus Christ as the Messiah. So I want to encourage you to think about these topics, and hopefully in this election year, we will be able to address some more of these issues, as I've been preparing a series of messages to cover the next 20 weeks or so up to the election, thinking about government, thinking about world events, thinking about Israel, and trying to look at all of this through the lens, the context of Scripture. So, I hope I whetted your appetite a bit to do some research on your own. Sorry that this was such a surface level overview of this topic, but hopefully we'll be able to address this in further detail as time rolls on.